Welcome in, everybody. New team, new name. We are going to be transitioning from the King's Gambit to post Gunk clarity here with Youngster Joey. This is going to be our post week 5 episode highlighting the Scuttle season 4. A lot of shit went down last night, and I think there's a lot of stuff to cover. I've been absent, MIA. Slippy kind of stuffed me in a coffin. I wasn't able to get out. We've been freed. Polston, my Pookie Bear, came to my rescue, and we are back to really talk about the Gunkers series last night, the Baron League in general, and just what does the outlook look like for the rest of the season. Make sure some of our top performers get the flowers they deserve, and look across the league. So first things first, always want to dive into my series from the night before. So we'll be pulling up draft from last night. Let me move my face. No way, we'll make it nice and big. I know this will get Charmweaver really excited. But looking at game one from last night, a couple of thoughts on this one. I think there were some really smart ban decisions by the Catboys, who we played last night. Second round with less force of the season. But in general, I think the Smolder ban is a necessity when you're on red side at this point until that hot fix moving the DFT damage from adaptive to magic comes in. The Ari ban against Link makes a lot of sense, has a lot of prio there. And then the Shen ban, I know that was targeted at Porf, but I'm going to boost my ego and make me think that was a flex ban that they wanted to take off the table as well. But that's where I wanted to start with draft. Then looking at some of the picks that were made, the Nefiri first pick was something that I kind of came in and said, heard Link propose it. If that's what you want to slam the gauntlet down, go for it. And really panned out well. Now Nefiri is very strong right now. To first pick it, I think, was a choice. But in the end, you can't argue with the results, and the data speaks for itself. Looking at the rest of our composition, the Senna, another very strong pick, specifically with the DFT interaction, or the Static Shiv, the Cleaver as well. Just really strong across the board, and I was able to get my Volibear, which is another strong option. So was really happy with our first 3 picks. Looking at the Catboy side, a couple of surprises that we didn't see coming. The Varus, the Vex, the Vayne, I'll call all 3 of those V names out. Really didn't anticipate any of those, and really was some smart drafting coming out from the Catboys. I think they fit their composition really well. The Nocturne had some diving buddies with the Vex, with the Seraphine ulti over top, had a little bit of peel from the Vex, from the Vayne Condemn. Just really well rounded. Obviously, the only concern is not having a lot of beefiness, a lot of tanks. But besides that, I think it was a really well rounded comp. Just looking at some of the picks on our side, talking about the Cassante, I couldn't help but call out any top laner who's willing to blind a tank no matter what's going to be coming, specifically with Fright Arrow having the counter pick on Red 5. Really like that, and shout out to Porf in the top lane as well. Transitioning into the game itself, transparently, we got smacked the first couple of minutes. We forced a lot of plays around bot side, around the Senna before the item power spikes really came in, so no fault to Polson on that one. I think we were really just eager, wanted to hit the gas pedal hard, and that bounced around in our face. This was really strong laning both games. I'll call out from Lunari and Less Force in the bot lane. They picked some really strong prio picks, and they capitalized on those, so wanted to give some kudos there. I will say in this game specifically, my only role was one, play around the Nefiri, transition our team into the mid game so that way Senna can be strong, and be there for top lane to help with the wave management. I think there were 2 times where I was able to just help the shove get in, get the bounce back, and transparently, I think that was enough to nullify the Vayne pick. The Vayne really didn't get going for the most part. Didn't have solo kill pressure, didn't have map pressure to be able to empower this Nocturne Vex combo to be in my jungle. Just I didn't really feel it, and I don't know if that was just a small amount of jungle pressure that was thrown top, or if it was just Porf being an absolute goat, and I'm gonna probably defer to that. In general, I think there was one play that comes to mind in the early game between myself and Link on the enemy Raptor on the first clear. Just kind of surprised that a Nefiri Volibear lost the 2v2 that hard. I don't know if that was due to Raptor damage, was it just a misplay, miscommunication, just something that we had to run away with our tails between our legs. But we were able to bounce back despite the death bot lane, despite that failed first play. For a team with our first time on the Rift together, I think we were able to take our lickings and bounce back very well, which I was happy about. My one criticism, I will say, for Memer Sticks is I don't understand how this guy can falls behind in CS so frequently. I feel like early games he plays very well. I see him up 2 to 3 camps in general, specifically on the first clear when he plays against me, and 15 minutes later I look and I'm a couple 20 CS ahead. So just something that I think will be very important as the season continues on for memers to find a way to transition those early leads in the jungle from an efficiency standpoint to continue being, doesn't necessarily need to be a win condition for the team, but more of a stable option moving forward to transition and empower the team. Looking at game two, starting with the draft, again, very smart bans across the board. Dropping the Ezreal ban on our side to first pick it makes a lot of sense. It's something that Less Force is good on. It's a safe pick. Anytime you have an off-roll ADC playing, you probably want to take away the safe options. That in the same breath, I'd say kudos to this bot lane of the Catboys and Less Force specifically. You really haven't seen a lot of the safe, quote-unquote, ADCs being played. I know there's some talks about a Draven being picked, but they say, fuck it, if you're going to try to take away my safe options, I'm not going to play safe. I'm going to play in your face. And that really played to their favor. We picked the Skarner here on blue 2. Not sure if that really came across as a flex as it should have. I hope it did. Duo was really excited to play this one now. I don't know if playing it into a double range matchup, specifically into a Caitlyn, was the most fun. Probably wasn't the most efficient. But we were able to get it done, so we were able to continue on the season-long Fearless for Duo. Looking at the mid lane, the TF is something we were able to get a quick game or two in as a unit before this series, and I really like Link on the TF. And in general, I'd say he brings a lot to the table in terms of being able to play matchups that can shove, play the map, play wherever we need to for objective control. I love players that are willing to do that in support, in mid, and Link really brings that to the table. I was really excited to see that, and I think this capitalized created a lot of early game options for me in the jungle. This was the Viego pick. In comms, I said, hey, if things go well, Viego has the option to 1v9. If not, Pantheon's the smart pick, and we can absolutely default to it. I was definitely encouraged to let it hang out, and it worked well for the first 10 minutes until the enemy team had their level 6, but we'll talk about that. I think Viego was a high-risk, high-reward play, and when we had an Ezreal Skarner, I think it was justified to go for that high risk. Not saying they're bad picks, but I think we got to have some more variance into our drafts, and that was somewhere we were able to get that. And then on the back end, another composition where we were able to see a strong bot lane duo come out from the Catboys and the Fiora R5 counter pick. I'll talk a little bit more, but I think in draft in general, we've seen very consistently Fried Arrow or just the top lane for Catboys getting this R5 counter pick whenever available, not seeing it translate to wins. And I think that's the scariest part for me, and just some I talked about my criticism in the game 1 draft. I'd say game 2, if you're holding a counter pick and forcing earlier, stronger options, and I'll call out the Vi specifically. If your jungler is going to get put on Vi, they're willing to do that for the team. But if the team can't capitalize on that additional investment in the draft, boy, does it feel bad, specifically for any jungler, but memers here in this one. Looking at the matchup itself, first couple levels again, I'd say the first 15 minutes this time, we were able to get a couple blows early, specifically around the TF Viego combo. I thought was really good. Malfeasance, you're not going to have a lot of punishing windows, but we were able to find a couple early, and just was not able to convert that, especially once bot lane was able to get onto the map with the prio of the Caitlyn Karma. Once the R buttons were available, I had nightmares trying to, instead of counting sheep, I actually counted the Lux, Caitlyn, and Vi ults that landed on my head that game. I stopped counting after 33. But in general, I think what we were able to do is find a lot of timely picks that were able to delay that snowball, or as there were team fights, skirmishes breaking out at the end, or even at the beginning, we were able to lose those fights, but find really critical kills, whether that be on the jungler, so objectives couldn't be taken, or onto a Lux or a Caitlyn, so that way waves couldn't be pushed, and turret siege. They were just really crucial to slowing down the snowball, and that gave us the opportunity to find our way back in. And in general, there was a lot of banter questions about what happened in this game too. I think simply put, Catboys were very far ahead. They were on Soul Point. Soul was coming up in 45 seconds, and we had made the call to, hey, I don't know how in the world you ever walk into a fed Lux Caitlyn Karma. We're just not going to do it. Let's 5-man top. We have the TF that's able to delay backs, but have the ultimate or TP to get to us. We're able to look to siege, specifically with some AD finally onto the Ezreal Viego, and we all in. And this is the type of thing I love to see from a team that's behind us. You got to do some wonky shit. You got to be able to say, hey, we might not be able to make the best play, but we can find an opportunity to take one of those high risk, high reward plays, because if not, you're going to sit there and bleed to death. And this was something that, without even being told, Link was able to play, stopping those backs, was able to communicate it. We were very nervous that we would only end up taking the Nexus towers. They'd respawn, we'd come back, and we'd blow our load for nothing. But ultimately, it panned to fruition. I think a lot of this was just catching the Cat Boys with their pants down. I don't know what the comms looked like on their end without any stream, but I anticipate it was, do they have the damage to end? Do we need to burst this objective? Do we stall it so they have to walk into us? Are we able to hold? Just a lot of question marks. And when there's a lot of questions, a lot of comms, a lot of just poor macro decisions, we were able to take advantage of that despite where the game state was, being down in a ton of gold and kills. In general, wrapping this up, the 2-0, I really want to shout out Lest. I know this sounds like Cousin Glaze, but if you know me, that this doesn't happen very often. But I will say that he is looking better and better each week, and really want to give credit there. Simply put, I think that this bottom duo is really finding their niche in terms of picking lane dominant options and having a jungler, an off-roll jungler at that. It doesn't really matter, but having somebody who's willing to sacrifice themselves in their CS, in their levels, and play in that back pocket, that is a win condition. And this is something that a lot of folks were nervous about early preseason, is can the Cat Boys find a consistent win condition? And this bot lane creates it. Not just Less Force, Lunari deserves a credit as well. This is definitely a tag team that they're executing very well. I called it out earlier, but if Friday Hour is going to continue to get these R5 counter picks, they got to execute. They got to be that secondary win condition. It doesn't have to be playing for a 5v5 in this specific draft. Still could have been a Fiora, but it needs to be an absolute menace of a Fiora. And instead, I think the Mundo and TF had stronger side wave pressure, which you don't see very often. It was just shove them back off, shove them back off. That's something you anticipate from a tank. It can't be a Fiora. And here, I was really happy this first week. My solo laners played phenomenally. I'll go back to the first game, pull that up on screen. But when you have a Cassante playing into Vayne, your first thought as a teammate is, oh shit, how far are they going to fall behind? When I look top and they're tied in CS, when I look top and there's kill pressure, when I can path top and we can execute plays, that's all I can ask for. And Porf played phenomenally. And then Link, I think we're very much on the same page right out of the get-go of shove and move, look for plays, find our angles. And the comms, this was one of the first times that I've played comp in quite some time that a mid laner was able to call their plays, call fights in team fights to say what they can or can't do. And maybe that was just from the assassin standpoint to say, hey, I'm Nefiri, play around me. But specifically from the mid lane, I think the comms were very strong, and maybe that comes to the collegiate experience, but was really enthused playing there. And I think the vibes are going to be really good with this unit. This is yes, in the standings, Gunkers are not in the best spot. We'll pull that up here on the side. Let me move back over. But in general, I would say this is exactly what I was looking for from a composition standpoint of a team that can fire on all cylinders. I'm getting vibes very similar to the Penny Pinchers, to where any lane can win, any game we can win or lose, just depending on what version shows up. And it's going to be a lot of both draft dependence, making sure we don't shoot ourselves in the foot, but also making sure we're on the same page. We have Link, myself, and Duo who all want to hit the go button, and we just got to be there together. Looking around the rest of the league, we have the standings pulled up. Bonkers pulled off the 2-0 victory over the high stakes. I think everybody and their mother was anticipating a closer outcome here. I'd say in general, just a rough showing. Having the substitute mid laner, I think Tiny Shoes might have a rougher series. Again, didn't watch specifically, but just looking at the post-game screen, not the high tier outcome that we're getting used to. And I'd say in general, just a shout out to Jack in the top lane for the Bonkers. Or if anybody is going to have an opportunity to win there, it's going to be to take down the Bonkers through top. But being able to play that weak side Willy role, but also show up to the team fights, that goes without being said to be such a strong strength. But if a team is able to both draft around that, take away tanks, or find a tank busting split pusher that can just run rampant, plus set that up from a play standpoint, have a mid laner and a jungler support that play style, that's going to be the potential crack in the Bonkers armor, but just haven't seen that come to fruition. On the other hand, for one of our top teams, On Gromp was able to squeak away with a 2-1 win against the Joey-less checkmates, but they really were able to, the checkmates were having a strong showing with the Apple Swain. Probably should watch out for that. The AP's in. Jake looked great on that. Something I haven't been a biggest fan of, but seeing the results, so kudos there. And Slippy putting the fries in the bag, playing the Orn. I swear every time I see this guy in comp, when he plays Orn, 5-2, 8-0, 6-3, just shows up every time. Would love to see that more consistently. Jungle Jim seemed on paper to run the other two games despite and combined only died twice. I think what you're starting to see is Breadwater jump into the gym backpack. Breadwater having some inconsistent showings this season. Maybe that's just a ramp up plan as we get closer to playoffs. But Jim is absolutely popping off on regardless. Supportive play styles, playmakers play styles, tanks, whatever you name it, carries, just give this man a champion and gonna show up. So really like seeing that one, and definitely like to give that shout out. And I was just happy to see Oso turned on their computer last night. Haven't heard from them, didn't see them on the Rift, but they got the victory, so that's all that matters. Slippy, nice neutralizing job there. And then finally, Shadow Collective getting the 2-1 victory over the Goblins. And I think game one, I don't want to harp on too much. I don't know who the fuck thought it was a good idea to give Jakester Fizz or Nefiri, to give Zebra Poppy, to give Smolder on game one. I know we were down a band, but I think this was, you know what, give them all their OP picks, get it out of the way. Maybe that was a strategy, and game two, it seemed to work. But I would say Ezreal and Lee Sin are definitely not, if you have two bans, not the two I'd be throwing towards the collective. So they took full advantage of that, getting out to a 1-0 victory. Impeccable. Looked impeccable. I will say both game two and game three, I'm sure that's a pun they've heard a lot, but I think just the playmaking, specifically on the Wukong and the Jarvan, looked really good in the stream game, or the moments that I was able to catch. I don't know what the comms were, but it looked like every time that the Goblins were able to find an advantageous fight, it was on the back of Impeccable's engage. So whether they're making the shot call or just executing on it, looked really good. 8 times also made some really crucial engages, and specifically in game 3 on that Nico, catching out the Corki several times with the Pop Blossom. I think this was really important to shut down the Corki win condition, and in general that game 3 Riz simply got rizzed in the top lane. Hortikius really looked good. This guy is coming in, really creating an additional win condition, and Zebra is a jungler who is going to enable those conditions for his team every time he gets them very well. So really look to see, to me, and I won't spoil, but I think the Shadow Collective are looking like a strong 3 or 4 seed, and this is something to where I don't anticipate that going anywhere. They're really clicking, and I think they can absolutely take teams. Zebra, I think, highlighted that in the post-game interview, but I'm looking forward to those matchups in the playoffs and later down the line. Diving back into our Summit stats. So team of the season has swapped up quite a lot recently. And here you have in front of you, again, I'll make my big head a bit smaller so you can see the names. But in general, I want to give everybody their shout out who's worked their way there. Hortikius has come in and just slapped some people around. Collective are a true contender. Maybe not a favorite, but definitely will be able to find some haymakers, and in the right scenario, find their opportunity to strike. And this is a win condition any team would love to have in the top lane. I'll talk about both Jungle Jim and Breadwater in the same sentence. I really think this is a dynamic duo that is untouched in the league. Everyone anticipated that following the draft. I don't have much more to say. They can play whatever they want. They can have off games, but it won't really matter. Achilles has worked his way back into the top spot. This is a tale as old as time, seeing that guy up here. I think the biggest question mark is, can this translate to wins consistently for the high stakes? And really, that high stakes Shadow Collective 3-4 matchup is one of the most intriguing storylines for me this season. And finally, Charmweaver planting their Vision flag on the top of the support pool. No Flame. I don't know if this is going to stick the entirety of the season, but as of right now, surely deserves the credit, and really able to show up consistently. This is somebody who is able to play several different roles. I've seen mid, I've seen ADC, APC, I guess you can call it that, even if they're building tank items in that role. Mid lane consistently, just in general, very smart player, and I think that knowledge translates very well into jungle and support pools, and in this scenario, taking full advantage. So I don't think there's any accident or luck that has put on Gunk to have 3 out of 5 spots on this list, and looking to see if they can continue to hold that down. Last couple of things to note on the podcast. My week 5 MVP, I've glazed them enough this week, but it's going to be Jungle Jim. continues to be a pure catalyst for this top contender. Wide range of a champ pool, fit whatever the team needs, and look damn good doing it. I don't know what more there is to say about it. I don't know who the shot caller is. I know Bear is quite a vocal player. Could be coming from the jungle side. But in general, and I know Charmweaver has some strong macro as well, but Jungle Jim might be making the calls, might not. And if they're not, they're executing it to a T. And that looks to be like a season staple here. And then my honorable mention, a little bit of a switch up. Not a winner this past week, but I'm going to go with Less Force. I continue to glaze in the matchup analysis from earlier. Didn't translate into a win, but I think this is very consistently some strong showings put together in a row, despite people thinking, hey, let's just ban Ezreal MF or Ezreal Smolder and take these safe picks away. You're seeing shit like the Caitlyn, you're seeing the Aphelios, maybe seeing the Draven come out and creating a win condition for this team where the draft isn't necessarily setting that up, but Less Force and Lunari are really showing up week after week. And I think this is one of the most formidable off-roll performances we've seen in a very tough league. I think this is one of the most competitive leagues we've had ever in Scuttle from top to bottom. So flowers do there. Last two things, we got my rankings. These aren't going to come too controversial. On top, going to put the Bonkers. I think from top to bottom, just way too damn consistent and good. On Gromp in second. Shadow Collective for me have jumped up to third. This is just a roster that somehow, week in, week out, are getting their picks. They have just a wide enough pool in their key roles to where they're able to consistently perform, and I think they can hit you from any angle. I'm going to put the Gunkers fourth. I'm going to do it. It is time to gunk. But in general, I mentioned this is a roster that feels very similar to the Penny Pinchers for me last season. Comms are good. Vibes are good. We're willing to do what it takes to get the win. And I think this is something that can really translate. If we can squeak into playoffs, I think we can find a way to absolutely compete with the 3 through 5 seeds. Bonkers and On Gromp, always going to be a tough matchup for anybody who gets them. But this is I'm going from a checkmate squad that felt like we were doomed in a 4th through 6th role, getting bounced first week of playoffs, which as a TV knower, I'm used to. Whereas with this Gunker crew, I really think we have that high ceiling to where we can throw punches with anybody. Have high stakes in 5th. They can't drop that far when you have Achilles and Vacant Tech. Tiny Shoes, they are going hard. Maybe just an off week, they're going to look to bounce back. Checkmate sliding into 6th. Goblins bouncing them up to 7th. And Catboys sliding back into the 8th seed. Looking at next week, pulling up our schedule, I am anticipating a 2-1 victory for the Gunkers over Shadow Collective. I cannot wait to shut that Jordan Hoodie 8 times guy up in the bot lane. Play your engaged shit, you're going to get stuffed. But in general, I do think that's going to be a banger. Probably something people should tune in to watch. Checkmates are going to go down 2-1 to the Goblins. I think this is going to be my upset pick of the week. Not that it's Flame, but I really think Impeccable in the jungle for the Goblins has the potential to hard carry games. And this is something that, calling my shot, we'll see if it comes to fruition. On Gromp, winning 2-1 against the high stakes. And the one game, I'm going to call a Vacant Tech pop-off. I think Bear's going to get caught with their pants down. Not that it's going to be the entire series, but one game, it happens. Maybe the Demons will come out and we'll see a Smolder or a Yasuo top. But in general, that's my anticipation. And then finally, Bonkers, a clean 2-0 against the Catboys. Not much to say on that one. So that is this week's episode of Post Gunk Clarity. Thank you for tuning in and looking forward to next week, y'all.